In the early 2000s, a rundown apartment building stood in the heart of Tbilisi, Georgia. It was one of those places that, to most people, seemed completely ordinary at first glance. 12 floors of aging concrete, long hallways lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs, and an elevator that groaned every time it moved. The kind of building you wouldn't notice unless you had to live in it. It was called Didi Karkhana, a name locals jokingly referred to as the Big Factory, because of the constant sounds it made, the pipes and old walls that seemed to creak with every gust of wind. But it wasn't the sounds that made people nervous. It was something else entirely. In 2004, a woman named Tamar Gelishvili disappeared. She was 63, a schoolteacher who lived on the 9th floor of the building. Tamar had been out grocery shopping one evening, and as usual, she returned home and entered the elevator. Her neighbor, Nico, saw her press the button for her floor. The doors closed. The elevator moved up, but Tamar never came out. It wasn't until hours later, when her family called the police, that anyone thought to check the security footage. When they did, they saw something strange. The camera footage of the building's lobby was there, but the elevator was completely blank. No one saw Tamar enter the elevator or leave it. The camera seemed to glitch right when she stepped inside. At first, police thought it was a technical malfunction. After all, the building's infrastructure was old, and the elevator had been having issues for years. But no one could explain how Tamar could have simply vanished. The mystery was dismissed as a possible case of mental decline or even an accident, but nothing added up. The investigation didn't last long. Then, 2 years later, the next disappearance happened. A 22-year-old electrician named Georgi Kachidze was last seen entering the elevator on his way to the 4th floor. He had been working nearby, fixing some wires, and as he stepped into the elevator at 10 p.m., he waved goodbye to a colleague. He pressed the button, and the elevator door closed. He was never seen again. This time, though, the building manager checked the elevator's security footage. It had recorded him entering, but once the doors closed, the screen went black. Not a single frame showed him inside. No trace of him at all. By now, residents were starting to notice a disturbing pattern. People were disappearing, and each time it involved the elevator. The police started to investigate, but they never found any signs of foul play. No broken windows, no signs of struggle, no strange fingerprints. Just people stepping into the elevator and never coming back. As the years passed, more people disappeared. A couple, visiting from Kutaisi, entered the building in 2008. They were last seen heading to the elevator. Gone. A 14-year-old boy, a construction worker, a local doctor. The disappearances seemed endless, but what was even stranger was the pattern that emerged. After each disappearance, there was always a strange glitch in the security footage. For the first few seconds, the camera would show the victim entering the elevator, but the next few frames would always be corrupted. It was as if the footage was tampered with or erased completely at exactly the moment the person stepped inside. The police were baffled. It couldn't have been a coincidence. Around this time, the residents of the building began hearing strange sounds. At night, the old elevator would make a noise as if it were still operating, even when no one had called it. Some tenants swore they heard strange knocking sounds coming from the elevator shaft. It wasn't loud or consistent, just a slow rhythmic knock, 3 times, followed by a pause, then 3 more knocks. Some said it sounded like someone was trapped inside, banging on the walls, trying to escape. But when maintenance workers went to investigate, they found nothing. The knocking seemed to stop after they left, but the feeling that something was wrong lingered. In 2014, a young mother named Maya, who lived on the 5th floor, reported hearing the knocks one night as she was nursing her baby. It was around 2:30 in the morning. The knocking came from the shaft again, faint but clear. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. She called the building manager, who was also the only person with a spare key to the maintenance closet. He opened the elevator doors, checked the shaft, but found nothing. No person, no tool, no reason for the noise. He was baffled. He checked the elevator's control panel and found that it had gone down to a level called level -1. But there was no level -1. It didn't exist. No one had ever heard of it before. Maya's report didn't seem to make any difference to the authorities. It was dismissed as some kind of malfunction, another technical issue in the old building. But it wasn't long before people started talking. The disappearances and the strange elevator behavior became the subject of whispers in the building. People started moving out. Others were too scared to even take the elevator anymore, opting to use the stairs, no matter how high up their apartment was. Eventually, even the elevator maintenance workers refused to touch it. They didn't want to be the next victim. By 2016, the disappearances had reached a peak. It was then that Luca Adamia, a 17-year-old teenager, entered the elevator late one night. Luca had been visiting his friend on the 8th floor. He stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the second floor, and the doors closed. But he never reached his destination. 2 hours later, Luca was found unconscious in the building's boiler room, with no memory of how he had gotten there. He was barefoot, and his clothes were torn as if he had been dragged through something rough. When he regained consciousness, he told the police a chilling story. He claimed that the elevator had passed his floor, continuing downward. He said it didn't stop, even as it descended far beyond the building's normal levels. It wasn't until the elevator opened up into a dark hallway, a hallway that seemed to stretch forever, that he heard a voice. Luca couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like static, like the elevator itself was alive. He screamed, but no one came. The next thing he remembered was waking up in the boiler room, with no idea how he had gotten there. Luca's story was brushed off as a psychological breakdown, but he refused to return to the building, and even his friends wouldn't go back. It wasn't until February 2017 that the case reached its peak. A maintenance worker named Georgie Chumbridge was sent to inspect the elevator after complaints from the tenants. Georgie had been working in the building for years, and he was used to its strange quirks. He entered the elevator and pressed the button for the lower floors. He never came back. His toolbox was found near the elevator, his phone still recording audio in his pocket. The last few seconds of the recording were chilling. Georgie's breathing was heavy and uneven, and then in a low, distorted voice, something spoke. It sounded like static at first, but then it became clearer. A voice whispering, almost like it was coming from the elevator itself. The voice said, 15 is enough. The building was immediately closed off. The elevator was sealed, welded shut. No one was allowed to enter again. The authorities never gave any explanation. They didn't even confirm how many people had gone missing in the building, and they certainly didn't speak about the elevator. The building stood silent, abandoned, and forgotten by most. But if you go to that area today and stand near the building at night, you might still hear something. A faint sound, as if the elevator is moving. Or maybe it's the sound of something knocking from inside the shaft.